What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I've broken the stories down in the timeline, and there's a list of stories with time markers in the description below, so you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story that you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. And lastly, of course, if you have not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel. Airline company Air France-KLM announced it has suffered a data breach. Data belonging to customers of its loyalty program, Flying Blue, were exposed. The Flying Blue loyalty program is used by other airlines, including Airline, Kenya Airways, Tarom, and Transavia. The company did not provide details about the security breach. It is not clear if threat actors had access to its infrastructure. The company notified impacted customers of suspicious activity related to their accounts, and the notice sent to the customers informed them that some of their personal information might have been exposed. Compromised data include names, email addresses, Flying Blue numbers and level, miles balance, phone numbers, and latest transactions. Air France-KLM pointed out that no financial information was exposed. Our security operations teams have detected suspicious behavior by an unauthorized entity in relation to your account. We have immediately implemented corrective action to prevent further exposure of your data. Raise a notification sent to customers. The airline locked customers' accounts and required customers to reset their passwords in order to regain access. I've checked this for you, and rest assured that the attack was blocked in time and no miles were charged. I do, however, invite you to change your Flying Blue password via the Flying Blue website, apparently what the notification said. Fortinet researchers reported how threat actors exploited the recently patched FortiIOS SSL-VPN vulnerability tracked to CVE-2022-42475 in attacks against government organizations and government-related targets. According to ReSecurity, or ReSecurity, a cybersecurity company who is protecting Fortune 500 companies globally, the vulnerability was earlier marketed privately by several underground brokers in the dark web and used for targeted network intrusions. Significant network activity has been identified originating from APAC and Southeast Asia specifically. In December, the security vendor urged its customers to update the installs to address an actively exploited FortiIOS SSL-VPN vulnerability tracked as CVE-2022-42475 that could be exploited by an unauthenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary code on devices. The security flaw, again CVE-2022-42475, abused in these incidents is a heap-based buffer overflow weakness found in the FortiIOS SSL-VPN-D that allowed unauthenticated attackers to crash targeted devices remotely or gain remote code execution. Again, CVE-2022-42475 flaw is a heap-based buffer overflow issue that resides in FortiIOS SSL-VPN-D. A heap-based buffer overflow vulnerability, CWE-122, in FortiIOS SSL-VPN may allow a remote unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code or commands via specifically crafted requests. Recent advisory published by the security vendor. Fortinet is aware of an instance where this vulnerability was exploited in the wild. According to the experts, the threat actor behind the attacks is a sophisticated attacker due to the complexity of the exploit. The attackers exploited the flaw to deliver a variant of a generic Linux implant customized for FortiIOS. The malicious binary was located in /data/lib/lib/ips.back. Now, attackers masquerade the malware as a component of Fortinet IPS engine that's located in /data/lib/lib/ips.so. libips.bak exports the functions ips_so_patch_url_dbe and ips_so_square_interface. These are the same exports in the clean IPS engine binary libips.so. Both exported functions lead to the same malicious code. libips.bak is named libips.so in the /data/lib directory. The malicious code will be executed automatically as components of FortiIOS will call these exported functions. Reads the report published by Fortinet. The binary does not attempt to return to the clean IPS engine code, so IPS functionality is also compromised. Post-incident metadata investigation allowed the experts to uncover an additional IOC, or indication of compromise. The IP address 185.174.136.20, a folder on the server was containing binaries built specifically to target FortiGate hardware versions. Then the researchers created a set of Yara rules to hunt for similar file samples and identified the /var/w samples. The execution of these files was observed in the PCAPS, but not obtained directly from the file system. The analysis of the /var/w file samples revealed that threat actors use advanced capabilities to manipulate FortiIOS logging, such as whatever was listed in the article, of course. Antivirus firm Bitdefender released a decryptor for the MegaCortex ransomware, which can allow victims of the group to restore their data for free. The MegaCortex ransomware first appeared on the threat landscape in May 2019 when it was spotted by security experts at Sophos. The experts noticed that in MegaCortex attacks, other malware like Emotet and Qbot, or aka Cakebot, were present in the same network. Since November 2019, MegaCortex operators started adopting double extortion tactics. The group typically asked ransoms between $20,000 and $5.8 million. This is a huge range to receive a decryptor. In December 2019, the FBI issued a warning to the private industry of cyber attacks involving the LockBit and MegaCortex ransomware. Bitdefender researchers have developed the decryptor with the support of Europol, the Zurich Public Prosecutor Office, and Cantonal Police, and researchers from the No More Ransomware Project. The tool is an executable that can be downloaded from Bitdefender servers. The decryptor also supports the Scan Entire System mode, which allows users to search for all encrypted files. The user guide released by the security firm strongly recommends users of maintaining the backup files enabled, meaning maintain a backup of the encrypted files just in case something goes wrong. By checking the backup option, users will see both the encrypted and decrypted files. See, I just said that. They can also find a log describing decryption process in a temp Bitdefender log.txt folder. In case of encryption with versions 2 to 4, please make sure the system contains the ransom note, e.g. read_me.txt or readme RTF, etc. For encryption with MegaCortex version 1, the encrypted files have the .aes128 CTR extension appended. Please ensure the ransom note and TSV log file, e.g. whatever that is, created by the ransomware are present on the system. Reads an important note included in the manual provided with the tool. In September, the Zurich Public Prosecutor Office announced it was planning to release a decryptor after the seizure of decryption private keys from a threat actor who was arrested by Swiss authorities and that is facing hacking and money laundering charges. This analysis revealed numerous private keys from ransomware attacks. These keys enable damaged companies and institutions to restore data previously encrypted with the LockBit or MegaCortex malware. In cooperation with Europol, the No More Ransomware Project, and the company Bitdefender, a tool is provided that supports the victims in decrypting LockBit. This is available at nomoransomware.org, reads a press release published by the Zurich Public Prosecutor Office. MegaCortex decryption tool will be released soon. Victims who are affected by attacks with the malicious programs mentioned are urgently requested to file a criminal complaint in their respective home country if they have not already done so. Chick-fil-A is an American fast food restaurant chain, in case you didn't know. It is the country's largest, which specializes in chicken sandwiches. Even larger than Kentucky Fried Chicken, but okay. The company informed its customers of having launched an investigation into suspicious activity on some customer accounts. We're investigating suspicious activity on some customer accounts, reads a statement from the company. While we are still investigating how certain customers became subject to this fraudulent activity, we have already taken precautions to further secure the affected member accounts and are continuing to review the situation and enhance our security protocols where appropriate. Why would you have an account at Chick-fil-A? Anyway, Chick-fil-A has suspended the creation of new accounts and is prohibiting the use of disposable email addresses. So there was a tweet from somebody saying that they got a warning from Chick-fil-A and somehow their information got leaked. Chick-fil-A compromised. Yeah, I just got this here. There's another message about somebody getting hacked by Chick-fil-A or getting a message that Chick-fil-A has been hacked. Now, the company also recommends users of removing any stored payment methods, either credit or debit cards, from their Chick-fil-A One account. Again, why would you have an account at Chick-fil-A? According to Bleeping Computer, threat actors are selling some of the stolen accounts for $2 to $200, depending on the account balance, linked payment method, or Chick-fil-A One points, rewards points balance. Some customers reported on social media that their accounts had been hacked. Cisco is warning of a critical vulnerability with respect to CVE 2023-20025 with a CVSS score of 9.0 that impacts small business RV016, RV042, RZ042G, and RV082 routers. The IT giant announced that these devices will receive no security updates to address the bug because they've reached end of life. The flaw is an authentication bypass issue that resides in the web-based management interface of the routers. An attacker An unauthenticated remote attacker can exploit the CVE 2023-20025 flaw to bypass authentication on vulnerable devices. The flaw is due to improper validation of user input within incoming HTTP packets. An attacker could trigger the flaw by sending a specially crafted HTTP request to the web-based management interface. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to bypass authentication and gain root access on the underlying operating system, reads the advisory published by the company. Cisco has not and will not release software updates that address this vulnerability. There are no workarounds that address this vulnerability. Oh, yay! The communications technology firm said that there are no workarounds to fix this flaw. However, admins may disable remote management and block access to ports 443 and 60443. Cisco also addressed a remote command execution vulnerability tracked as... Wait a second, they say there's no workarounds available, but they're telling you how to block it. Anyway, tracked as CVE 2023-20026 with a CVSS score of 6.5 that impacts Cisco Small Business, again, RV016, RV042, RV042G, and RV082 routers. This vulnerability is due to improper validation of user input within incoming HTTP packets. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by sending a crafted HTTP request to the web-based management interface. Reads the advisory. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to gain root-level privileges and access unauthorized data. To exploit this vulnerability, an attacker would need to have valid administrative credentials on the affected device. Cisco would not release software updates that address this vulnerability. Two, it also provides these same mitigations that address the CVE 2023-20025. The company, PSIRT, is aware of the availability of proof-of-concept exploit code for these flaws. The Cisco PSIRT is not aware of any malicious use of the vulnerabilities that are described in this advisory. Trend Micro experts discovered a new variant of the Dridex banking malware that targets the macOS platform and that used a new technique to deliver documents embedded with malicious macros. The Dridex banking Trojan that has been around since 2014 was involved in numerous campaigns against financial institutions over the years, and crooks have continuously improved it. The banking malware is believed to be operated by the cybercrime gang known as Evil Corp. The sample analyzed by Trend Micro arrived in the form of a MacO executable file, a.out, detected as trojan.macos.dridex.manp. The earliest sample analyzed by Trend Micro was submitted to VirusTotal in April 2019, while the most recent one was dated December 2022. The data segment of the sample contains the malicious embedded document and is used by the _payload_doc variable. The disassembly shows that the malware performs a loop where the content of the payload doc is copied until the counter reaches payload doc length, the size of the malicious code. Reads the analysis published by Trend Micro. Once the malicious code is ready, the C-string segment plays a role in overriding the code to the target files. The malicious embedded document was first detected in 2015. The researchers noticed that the affected .doc files incorporate this document object that includes the auto-open macro, which calls the malicious functions. The malware first searches for the doc files in the current user name directory using the find name doc star docs command. It then traverses through each document file using a for loop and writes the malicious code via the echo command. The malicious macro code copied from the embedded document is in plain hexadecimal dump. While the macro feature in Microsoft Word is disabled by default, the malware will overwrite all document files for the current user, including the clean ones. This makes it more difficult for the user to determine whether the file is malicious since it doesn't come from an external source, continues the post. The macros in the overwritten document connect to a remote server to retrieve additional payloads. Experts also notice that the malware also drops an exe file that will not run in a macOS environment, a circumstance that suggests that the malicious code is still in the testing stage. While documents containing booby-trapped macros are typically delivered via social engineering attacks, the findings once again show that Microsoft's decision to block macros by default has prompted threat actors to refine their tactics and find more efficient methods of entry. Cybersecurity vendor Fortinet addressed several vulnerabilities impacting its products. The company also warned customers of a high-severity command injection flaw tracked to CVE 2022-39947 with a CVSS score of 8.6, affecting the application delivery controller FortiADC. Before we had FortiIOS, now we're talking about FortiADC. Seems like Fortinet has a ton of problems. The CVE 2022-42475 flaw is an improper neutralization of special elements used in an OS command vulnerability in FortiADC or FortiADC. It can potentially lead to arbitrary code execution via specially crafted HTTP requests. An improper neutralization of special elements used in an OS command vulnerability, which is CWE78, in FortiADC may allow an authenticated attacker with access to the web GUI to execute unauthorized code or commands via specifically crafted HTTP requests, reads the advisory published by the vendor. FortiADC version 7.0.0 through 7.0.2, FortiADC version 6.2.0 through 6.2.3, 6.1.0 to 6.1.6, 6.0.0 through 6.1.4, and all these other numbers. The flaw was discovered internally and reported by Gwendol Gugniad, a Fortinet product security team. The vendor also addressed several high-severity command injection vulnerabilities in FortiTester, tracked to CVE 2022-35845, with a CVSS score of 7.6, that may allow an authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary commands in the underlying shell. Multiple improper neutralization of special elements used in an OS command or command injection vulnerability CW78 in FortiTester may allow an authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary commands in the underlying shell, reads the advisory. FortiTester version 7.1 and a bunch of other versions are affected. The vendor did not warn of active exploitation of the above vulnerabilities, but that doesn't mean that they're not happening. It just means that they have no idea. Trend Micro researchers warn that Gootkit Loader is actively targeting the Australian healthcare industry. The experts analyzed a series of attacks and discovered that Gootkit leveraged SEO poisoning for its initial access and abused legitimate tools like VLC Media Player. The SEO poisoning techniques targeted the Australian healthcare industry using keywords like hospital, health, medical, and expertise or enterprise agreement, where do I get expertise from, paired with Australian city names. Threat actors also used healthcare providers across Australia. The abuse of VLC Media Player, a widely used legitimate tool, is another key feature of this attack. VLC Media Player is one of the most popular pieces of software with over 3.5 billion downloads for Windows alone. In the past, there have been reports of similar abuse by APT 10, reads the report published by Trend Micro. The malware authors side-loaded the following malicious DLL to abuse VLC Media Player and manipulated it as part of a Cobalt strike. Searching for terms related to Australian healthcare industry, contaminated search results are proposed on the first page of search results. Upon accessing the site, the user is presented with a screen that appears like a legitimate forum. Users then are led to access the link so that the malware-laced zip file can be downloaded. The sites used to trick users into downloading malicious files due to SEO poisoning look like legitimate WordPress sites that have been compromised and abused. In addition, the malicious JavaScript inserts its code into a legitimate JS file at random segments on the compromised websites, continue the report. The zip archive also contains a JavaScript file that is used to employ obfuscation and establish persistence through a scheduled task. The process launched from a scheduled task runs a PowerShell script and retrieves files for the attack chain from the command and control server that abused a legitimate WordPress site. The experts noticed that the second stage of the infection takes place after the waiting time. During the waiting time, the scheduled task performed 2 command and control accesses per day without executing any other process. This latency, which clearly separates the initial infection stage from the second stage, is a distinctive feature of Gootkit Loader operation, the researchers added. After the waiting time, the payloads are dropped, msdtc.exe and livevlc.dll. The msdtc.exe is a legitimate VLC media player that impersonates a legitimate Windows component. It loads livevlc.dll with its function as a module related to Cobalt Strike with a DLL sideloading technique. When the MSDTC acts as part of Cobalt Strike, while still being a valid signed and legitimate executable program. Consulate Health Care is a leading provider of senior healthcare services specializing in post-acute care. The Hive Ransomware gang this week added the company to its Tor leak site, threatening to publish the stolen data. The gang states that the attack took place on December 3rd, 2022, and the attack was disclosed on January 6, 2023. The gang initially leaked samples of the stolen data as proof of the attack. It claimed to have stolen contracts, NDA and other agreement documents, company private info, budgets, plans, evaluations, revenue cycle, investors' relations, company structure, etc., 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 employee info like social security numbers, email addresses, phone numbers, photos, insurance info, payments, etc., and customers info, medical records, credit cards, email, social security numbers, phone numbers, insurances, blah, blah, blah. The security breach was also confirmed by the victim in a notice published on its website. One of our vendors recently suffered a security incident in early December where cybercriminals targeted portions of their network. Our vendor promptly began working with third-party experts to help them investigate and respond to the incident. During that investigation, the vendor became aware that the unauthorized third party may have accessed records with personal information. Reads the notice of incident published by the Consulate Health Care. Although our vendor is still investigating the scope of that access, we're providing this notice out of an abundance of caution and because we value transparency. However, the security researcher Dominic Alvieri first noticed that the group leaked 550 gigabytes of data stolen from the Consulate Health Care, including customer and employee personally identifiable information. He correctly speculated that the negotiations failed and the ransomware gang opted to leak all the data without waiting for the planned deadline. Hive Ransomware just leaked 550 gigabytes of Consulate Healthcare customer and employee personal negotiations fell apart and 3 days quickly turned into 3 hours. According to data breachers, the company had ended negotiations after several weeks because they could not afford even the reduced amount demanded because their insurance would not cover any ransom payment. While the CHC notice highlights that the root cause of the data breach is an attack against a vendor, Hive representatives told data breaches that they did not attack any CHC vendor, but had attacked CHC directly. Ooh. Cyber researchers recently uncovered a phishing campaign targeting users of the popular video conferencing and online meeting platform Zoom to deliver the IcedID malware. IcedID banking Trojan first appeared in the threat landscape in 2017. Its capabilities similar to other financial threats like Gozi, Zeus, and Dridex. Experts at IBM X-Force that first analyzed it noticed that the threat actors or the threat does not borrow code from other banking malware, but the malicious code implements comparable capabilities, including launching man-in-the-browser attacks and intercepting and stealing financial information from victims. The IcedID malware usually spreads malvertising campaigns using weaponized Office documents. However, in the campaign discovered by Cyber, threat actors used a phishing website mimicking the legitimate Zoom website to deliver the IcedID malware. The TAs behind this, or threat actors behind this campaign, used a highly convincing phishing page that looked like a legitimate Zoom website to trick users into downloading the IcedID malware, which carries out malicious activities, reads the analysis published by Cyber. The landing page on the website contained a download button. Upon clicking on the button, the site delivered a Zoom installer file from the URL, whatever that is. The analysis conducted by the experts revealed that the file was a version of the IcedID malware. Upon executing the Zoom installer full.exe executable, the malware drops the binaries ikm.msi, maker.dll binaries in the temp folder. The maker.dll is a malicious library used to perform various malicious activities and load the IcedID malware, while ikm.msi is a legitimate installer of the Zoom application. Once installed, the IcedID malware attempts to connect to the command control server. If the malware can successfully connect to the command control server, it can drop an additional malicious payload in the program data directory. IcedID is a highly advanced, long-lasting malware that has affected users worldwide, concludes the report. The threat actor utilized a phishing site in this specific campaign to deliver the IcedID payload. Threat actors are constantly adapting their techniques to evade detection by cybersecurity measures. So here it comes, whatever that means. inSicurezzaDigitale announced the Dashboard Ransomware Monitor. It's the second project after the recent presentation of the project Mastodon. The dashboard is very easy to use, and it is available via whatever that link is. The dashboard is available for free and without any sign-in. It provides an easy-to-query tool that monitors ransomware attacks on a global scale and on a daily basis. The strength of this OSINT Italian project, quite unique in its kind, is the chance of following it with a standard worldwide and easy RSS feed, explained the development team. All data collected by the dashboard can be exported in different formats and can be analyzed using useful graphics. Yay! Researchers at Microsoft Defender for Cloud observed threat actors behind Kinsing cryptojacking operations using two methods to gain initial access in Kubernetes environments: exploitation of weakly configured PostgreSQL containers and exploiting vulnerable images. The crypto miner Kinsing was first spotted by security firm Aqua Security in April 2022. At the time, the experts 2020. At the time, the experts spotted threat actors scanning the internet for Docker servers running API ports exposed without a password. The Kinsing malware abuses the resources of the Docker installations to mine cryptocurrency. Recently, Microsoft researchers observed a large number of clusters running a PostgreSQL container that was infected with the Kinsing malware. Experts pointed out that threat actors can exploit several misconfigurations to get access to an exposed Postgres server. The first misconfiguration is related to the use of trust authentication setting an attacker can abuse it to connect to the Postgres servers without authentication and potentially achieve code execution. To assign trust configuration on a specific IP address, one needs to edit the PG_HBA config file and add the following line: host all IP and then IP address range. Trust in some cases. This range is wider than it should be, or even accepts connections from any IP address. In such configurations, attackers can freely connect to the Postgres servers without authentication, which may lead to code execution. Raise the post published by Microsoft. Also, some network configurations Kubernetes are prone to ARP poisoning, allowing attackers to impersonate applications in the cluster. The researchers explained that it is possible to modify PostgreSQL container configuration in multiple ways, such as editing the PG_HBA conf file directly or setting environment variables that will modify the file Postgres host auth method variable. Allowing access to a broad range of IP addresses is exposing the Postgres container to a potential threat. The researchers also observed an alternative attack vector to access the Kubernetes environments. Attackers exploited vulnerabilities in images. Some of the applications with vulnerable versions that were exploited in this campaign are PHP Unit, Liferay, WebLogic, and WordPress. Exposing the cluster to the internet without proper security measures can leave it open to attack from external sources. In addition, attackers can gain access to the cluster by taking advantage of known vulnerabilities in images, concludes the report. It's important for security teams to be aware of exposed containers and vulnerable images and try to mitigate the risk before they are breached. Royal Mail, the British multinational postal service and courier company, last week announced that a cyber incident had a severe impact on its operation. The incident only impacted Royal Mail International export services. The company said it is temporarily unable to dispatch items to overseas destinations. I guess whatever meats and lard and whatever they're sending out overseas is going to spoil. Anyway, the company did not provide details about the attack. It confirmed that it is working around the clock to restore operations. We are working around the clock. Okay. To resolve this disruption, and we will update you as soon as we have more information, reads a statement shared by the company. Some customers may experience delay or disruption to items already shipped for export. The company recommends customers hold any export items while it recovers the operations. The company said it immediately launched an investigation into the incident and had brought in external experts to assist them. We're aware of an incident affecting Royal Mail Group Limited and are working with the company alongside National Crime Agency to fully understand the impact, said a spokesperson for the UK National Cybersecurity Centre. The British government National Cybersecurity Centre is investigating the incident along with the National Crime Agency. While Royal Mail, the Telegraph reported that the systems of the company have been infected with an encryptor used by LockBit operator. Oh, so I guess it's why Royal Mail with a question mark? According to the Telegraph, the ransomware encrypted devices used for international shipping and sent the ransom notes to printers used for customer operations. The attack, which has paralyzed the Postal Service ability to send letters and parcels abroad, was carried out by a gang called LockBit, which we just said. Reads the post published by the Telegraph. Sources familiar with the Royal Mail investigation said LockBit ransomware, known as LockBit Black, had infected machines used by the postal operator to print customs labels for parcels being sent to overseas destinations. The ransom note seen by the Telegraph says, LockBit Black ransomware, your data are stolen and encrypted. The ransomware group, as usual, threatened to publish alleged stolen data on its dark web leak site. Microsoft Patch Tuesday security updates for January 2023 addressed a total of 98 vulnerabilities in Microsoft Windows and Windows components, Office and Office components, NetCore and Visual Studio Code, 3D Builder, Azure Service Fabric Container, Windows BitLocker, Windows Defender, Windows Print Spooler components, and Microsoft Exchange Server. 11 vulnerabilities are rated critical and 87 are rated important in severity. 25 of these flaws were submitted through the Zero-Day Initiative program. One of the flaws addressed this month, tracked to CVE 2023-21674 with a CVSS score of 8.8, is listed as being in the wild at the time of release. Being in the wild? You mean being attacked in the wild. The flaw is a Windows Advanced Local Procedure Call, ALPS, elevation of privilege vulnerability that could lead to a browser sandbox escape. An attacker can exploit this vulnerability to gain system privileges. This is the one bug listed as under active attack for this month. It allows a local attacker to escalate privileges from sandbox execution inside Chromium to kernel level execution and full system privileges. Reads the advisory published by ZDI. Microsoft is aware of active exploitation of the flaw in the wild, but did not share details about the attacks. The vulnerability was reported by malware researchers Jan Wojciech, Milnek, and Przemek Germerek from Avast. Sorry if I butchered your name. Another issue fixed by Microsoft is the CVE 2023-21549 with a CVS's score of 8.8 flaw, which is listed as publicly known at the time of release. The issue is a Windows Workstation Service Elevation to Privilege vulnerability. To exploit this vulnerability, an attacker could execute a specially crafted malicious script which executes an RPC call to an RPC host. This could result in elevation of privilege on the server, reads the advisory published by Microsoft. An attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could execute RPC functions that are restricted to privileged accounts only. So then they had the full list of addressed patches, which I'm not going to read. The government institutions of Moldova have been hit by a wave of phishing attacks. Threat actors sent more than 1,330 emails to accounts belonging to the country's state services. That's a huge, not really, wave. The Information Technology and Cybersecurity Service warns of scams and phishing cyber attack campaigns targeting government institutions. To date, more than 1,330 messages have been sent to the email addresses of public institutions, reads an alert published by Moldova Cybersecurity Regulator. Owners of the .md domains are informed by an email about the expiration of the domain name validity period and are asked to initiate the procedure for extending it, requesting access to a link to make the payment. The phishing messages attempt to trick recipients into clicking on an embedded link claiming that their domain is expiring. The link points to a fake payment page that recipients have to visit to renew their domains. The messages pretend to be sent by the local hosting provider AlexHost, which also published an advisory to warn its customers of the ongoing campaign. AlexHost is warning you that someone is doing phishing in our name. AlexHost asks all customers that is not AlexHost doing that. Someone is using our name of our company without any consent. If you receive an email that redirects to any link that is not alexhost.com domain, that might be phishing and fake. Reads the advisory published by the provider. Please don't pay with your credit card. The email comes with a fake payment page. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, pro-Russia threat actors hit Moldova due to its support to Kiev. The Killnet group launched multiple DDoS attacks against the governments that expressed support for Ukraine, including Moldova, Italy, Romania, the Czech Republic, Lithuania, Norway, and Latvia. In October, another wave of attacks targeted tens of Moldovan institutions with distributed denial of service attacks. A pro-Russian cybercrime group named No Name 057, aka 05716 NNM or NNM 05716, is behind a wave of DDoS attacks against organizations in Ukraine and NATO countries, Sentinel-1 researchers reported. The attack started in March 2022 and targeted government and critical infrastructure organizations. This week, the group disrupted services across the financial sector of Denmark, and recent attacks hit organizations and businesses across Poland, Lithuania, and others. Earlier this month, Poland's security agency warned of pro-Russian hackers that are continuously targeting the state since the start of the invasion of the Ukraine. The security agency reported that the case of the November attack on the Polish parliament that was attributed to the pro-Russian group No Name 05716. On January 11th, Sentinel Labs observed No Name 05716 began targeting 2023 Czech presidential election candidate websites. The researchers identified the group operations over public Telegram channels. Sentinel Labs has identified how the group operates over public Telegram channels. The researchers also identified a volunteer-fueled DDoS payment program, a multi-OS supported toolkit, and GitHub. No Name 05716 operates through Telegram to claim responsibility for their attacks, mock targets, make threats, and generally justify their actions as a group. Interestingly, No Name 05716 makes attempts to teach their followers through educational content, such as explaining basic industry jargon and attack concepts, reads the analysis published by Sentinel-1. With an average of 6 posts per day, the overall engagement of No Name 05716 Telegram efforts has slowly declined over time. According to the experts, the popularity of the group among followers and Telegram users is declining since July. The group uses GitHub for its activities, such as hosting a DDoS tool website named dosia.github.io and the associated GitHub repositories for hosting the latest version of their tools that are advertised in Telegram channel. The experts noticed 2 GitHub profiles, DDosia and Kentucky 341. Early commits to the DDoS config repo were made in the name of whatever that is. GitHub removed the accounts after Sentinel-1 reported that the abuse to the company. The command and control infrastructure used by the group was primarily hosted on the Bulgarian telecommunications company Terra. Experts observed threat actors also use the NoIP dynamic and DNS services. The current command and control server is Zig35M48Zer, whatever the rest of that is, which is still active. No-Name 05716 uses multiple tools to carry out their attacks. In September 2022, AVAS researchers observed the group using the Bobic botnet to launch DDoS attacks. Qualcomm, January 2023, Security Bulletin addressed 22 software vulnerabilities in its Snapdragon suite. Some of the flaws were reported by the FE Explorer team at the firmware protection firm Binarily, Xinhua Han of Oppo Amber Security Lab, Genji Chen from Ice Sword Lab, the researchers Nicholas 1993, Xiaoneng Zhang of Stallion, and Li Wu of Baidu Security. But so then they had a report of the most severe vulnerabilities addressed by the company. The most severe flaw is an integer overflow to buffer overflow in automotive tracked as CVE 2022-33219 with a CVSS score of 9.3. The memory corruption in automotive due to integer overflow to buffer overflow while registering a new listener with shared buffer. Whew. That's a mouthful. The flaws impacted laptops and other devices using Snapdragon chipsets that are manufactured by Lenovo, Microsoft, and Samsung. Lenovo released updates to address the vulnerabilities impacting the ThinkPad X13's BIOS. The open source JSON Web Token library is affected by a high severity security flaw tracked as CVE 2022-23529 with a CVSS score of 7.6 that could lead to remote code execution. The package is maintained by Auth0. It had over 9 million weekly downloads as of January 2022, and it is used by more than 22,000 projects. The flaw was discovered by Unit 42 researchers. It can be exploited by threat actors by tricking a server into verifying a maliciously crafted JSON Web Token request. By exploiting this vulnerability, attackers could achieve remote code execution on a server, verifying a maliciously crafted JSON Web Token request. Raising advisory were published by Palo Alto Networks. With that being said, in order to exploit the vulnerability described in this post, control the secret or public key value, an attacker will need to exploit a flaw within the secret management process. JSON Web Token is an open source JavaScript package that allows users to verify signed JSON Web Tokens. The flaw impacts JSON Web Token packages version 8.5.1 or an earlier version. The JSON Web Token package version 9.0.0 addressed the issue. For versions 8.5.1 of JSON Web Token library, if a malicious actor has the ability to modify the key retrieval parameter, referring to the Sentinel-1 or public key argument from the README link of the JWT verify function, they can gain remote code execution, reads the advisory published on GitHub. You are affected only if you allow untrusted entities to modify the key retrieve parameter of the JWT.verify on a host that you control. Vulnerabilities in open source projects are very dangerous. Threat actors could exploit them as part of supply chain attacks that can impact any projects relying on them. Open source projects are commonly used as the backbone of many services and platforms today. This is also true for the implementation of sensitive security mechanisms such as JWTs, which play a huge role in authentication and authorization processes, concludes Palo Alto. Security awareness is crucial when using open source software. Reviewing commonly used security open source implementations is necessary for maintaining their dependability, and it's something the open source community can take part in. ReSecurity, a Los Angeles-based security and cybersecurity and risk management provider, has released an eye-opening report on drug trafficking marketplaces currently operating in the dark web. The report highlights a rapidly growing shadow economy and new communication methods such as proprietary Android-based mobile apps criminals developed allowing them to migrate from traditional communication channels. Well, that's funny. I haven't found any drug things on the dark web. According to experts, following the takedown of the Hydra marketplace by Germany Federal Criminal Police Office in a joint operation with the FBI, DEA, IRS Criminal Investigations, and Homeland Security Investigations in April 2022, at least 10 darknet markets, and what are their names? Have risen to fill the regional void for drugs and other illicit groups. ReSecurity outlined what are their URLs? ReSecurity outlined a new marketplace called Kraken. Ooh, Kraken sounds great. Which emerged right at the start of 2023 following the Christmas holidays. Oh, what would I like for Christmas? And was designed in Hydra best tradition. Launched by the Way Away Market founders, it has already accumulated over 1,720 reputable sellers and shops selling illicit goods. At the end of 2022, dark web drug markets were worth an estimated $315 million annually, according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Resecurity estimates this figure to be significantly higher in 2023. The annual sale of illegal drugs on the dark web for 2022 exceeded $470 million, which is the result of increased geopolitical tensions, global pandemics, and the unprecedented growth of the international shadow economy. The Resecurity Hunter Unit performed an extensive analysis of current trends and dynamics related to the underground economy around active DNMs, leveraging technical means and human intelligence sources. The research aims to provide human intelligence sources? Kind of sounds like they were starting to buy drugs on the dark web just to see if they could get them. The research aims to provide awareness for international law enforcement, cybercrime investigators, and intelligence professionals. We're doing it all under the guise of cyber investigation. I swear. Based on the details provided in the released report over the summer of 2022, most pop-up markets on the dark web were primarily fighting for brand recognition. Much like cyber 90s type of environment, Resecurity detailed the increasing tensions between different influence groups behind illegal marketplaces and dark web, attacking each other, performing DDoS attacks, and trying to abuse the reputation of competitors to capture a bigger market share. Notably, a dominating number of actors moved from the now closed Hydra to new marketplaces and have started leveraging alternative digital channels, customized mobile apps, and instant messengers, including Telegram, of course. Some channels have been identified by Resecurity. They are oriented towards English, German-speaking audiences. The ecosystem of drug sales on the dark web pose threats internationally. Several epicenters, primarily concentrated in Eurasia and Central Asia, and actively used for drug trafficking, are outlined in the report. Reuters reported that the Russian-linked app group Cold River, aka Callisto, targeted 3 nuclear research laboratories in the United States between August and September 2022. The Cold River app group targeted the Brookhaven, Argonne, and Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. Threat actors created fake login pages for each organization and sent spear phishing messages to nuclear scientists in an attempt to trick them into providing their passwords. Nuclear scientists are not smart enough to not fall for a spear phishing campaign. Interesting. Reuters is not able to determine if threat actors were able to breach into the target networks, and potentially impacted organizations declined to comment or not responded to the news outlet. Cybersecurity and internet intelligence experts observed an escalation in the activity associated with the Cold River APT group since the invasion of the Ukraine. In March 2022, the Google Threat Analysis Group spotted phishing and malware attacks targeting Eastern European and NATO countries, including Ukraine. The researchers uncovered a phishing campaign conducted by the Cold River, aka Callisto app, against a NATO Center of Excellence and Eastern European militaries. The attacks of the group also aimed at a Ukrainian defense contractor and several US-based non-governmental organizations and think tanks. Google experts pointed out that this is the first time that the cyber spies target NATO and the military of multiple Eastern European countries. The digital bits against the U.S. labs occurred as UN experts entered Russian-controlled Ukrainian territory to inspect Europe's biggest atomic power plant and assess the risk of what both sides said could be a devastating radiation disaster amid heavy shelling nearby. Reuters showed its findings to 5 industry experts who confirmed the involvement of Cold River in the attempted nuclear labs attacks, or hacks, based on shared digital fingerprints and that researchers have historically tied to the group. In May, the APT group set up a website that published leaked emails from leading proponents of Britain's exit from the EU, Reuters reported. According to a Google cybersecurity official and the former head of UK Foreign Intelligence, the very English co-op Detect website was set up to publish private emails from Brexit supporters, including former British MI6 chief Richard Dearlove, leading Brexit campaigner Gisela Stewart, and historian Robert Tomes. Cybersecurity firm Sequoia.io recently uncovered a cyber espionage campaign targeting at least 3 European NGOs investigating war crimes. Polish authorities charged Russian and Belarusian individuals who were arrested in April with spying for the Russian military intelligence service from 2017 to April 2022. The defendants gathered intelligence on military facilities critical for the defense of the country, focusing on military units from the Northeast, as well as information on the combat capability, morale, and functioning of military units. Based on the materials collected by the Military Counterintelligence Service and the material collected in the course of the investigation, it was established that they participated in the activities of the Russian military intelligence, said the Warsaw Prosecutor Office. The activity of the defendants was focused on military units located in the northeastern part of Poland, and as part of this activity, they carried out tasks consisting in reconnaissance of significant elements of the Polish armed forces and obtaining information in particular in the area from the so-called migration crisis, the number of soldiers performing tasks. The Belarusian national was initially studying at one of the Białystok universities. Then he worked at an organization of parachute training. The Russian national was working in the tourism industry. Recently, Poland's security agency warned pro-Russian hackers that are continuously targeting the state since the start of the invasion of the Ukraine. The attacks aimed at almost any entity in Poland, including government services, private organizations, media outlets. According to the Polish intelligence, the attacks against the country are part of a response of the Kremlin to the Poland support provided to Ukraine. The security agency warns of an attempt to destabilize the situation in its country. Poland is in a strategic position and is considered a key Ukraine ally. It continues to provide support to Ukrainian refugees aligned with NATO's strategy. In July, pro-Russia Killnet hacker crew hit multiple government resources in Poland, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Senate, Border Control, and the police. In April, the same group claimed the responsibility for DDoS attacks on the sites of institutions in states such as USA, Estonia, Poland, and Czech Republic, and also on NATO sites. In October, Microsoft reported that a new strain of ransomware, tracked as Prestige ransomware, is being used in attacks aimed at transportation and logistics organizations in the Ukraine and Poland. Disclosing personal data on platforms providing digital services is always risky. The Cyber News research team identified a publicly accessible database storing up to 855 gigabytes of sensitive user and business data that belongs to social marketplace trustanduse.com. It's got the name Trust in it. All right. The linked database was first found on June 21st and remained potentially accessible to threat actors for at least 6 months. We reached out to Trust and Use, and the company fixed the issue. Trustanduse.com is a platform for consumers to rate products, services, professionals, and stores, as well as get offers and discounts. The company was founded in 2016 and is based in Athens. The discovered database included sensitive data such as usernames, full personal names, Facebook IDs, phone numbers, and passwords hashed with a decryptor algorithm, which is considered safe. Okay. The researchers ensure that credential stuffing attacks when perpetrators use stolen account credentials to gain unauthorized access to user accounts on other systems are unlikely. So the researchers ensure that those types of attacks are unlikely by finding, sites that have leaked data or leak data and informing them. However, threat actors could use the data for spam and spear phishing campaigns. So the researchers are the good guys, and the hackers and attackers are the bad guys, most often in the form of con emails that try to dupe the victim into parting with money or further valuable information. During the investigation, researchers were able to view publicly accessible information with business-related data, such as information about products, services, and partnerships. The information inside the database suggested that trustanduse.com had an active partnership with a Greek supermarket chain called Galexis, as it includes its suppliers, information about promotions, receipts, and special access to its website for supermarket employees. As the website did not have proper authentication implemented, researchers were able to view the documentation and sandbox environments of the application programming interface, which the company most likely developed. The company does not reveal on its website that it developed this API. Leaving such data publicly accessible can have a negative effect on businesses as it exposes commercial secrets. The leaked information reveals companies that they collaborate with, market strategies, and how the company operates. It also leaked access to their products, such as the API. All of this information can be used to gather insights on how they operate, what their partners are, links between their products, and their business strategies as a whole, explained the researcher team, which is a goldmine for a hacker. Or nefarious apt group. The trustanduse.com site might not operate anymore, at least judging from the fact that it appears to have fallen silent on social media channels. However, the discovered database was actively updated, so the data could still be used for future projects, sold to third parties, or exploited by threat actors. ESET researchers reported that StrongPity APT group targeted Android users with a Trojanized version of the Telegram app. The campaign has been active since November 2021. Threat actors served the malicious app through a website impersonating a video chat service called Shaggle. The experts highlighted that the Shaggle service, I wonder what it stands for with those pictures. The Shaggle service is available only via web interface and doesn't have a mobile app. A copycat website mimicking the Shaggle service is used to distribute StrongPity mobile backdoor app, reads the report published by ESET. The app is a modified version of the open-source Telegram app repackaged with StrongPity backdoor code. The HTML code of the fake site includes or was copied from the legitimate Shaggle.com site on November 1st, 2021, using a tool called HDTrack, while the domain was registered on the same day. The researchers pointed out that only one other Android campaign has been previously attributed to the StrongPity group. StrongPity App Group has been active since at least 2013. It's 10 years. It's responsible for cyber espionage campaigns against Turkish targets. Shaggle in Turkey. Okay. The group used zero-day exploits, social engineering tricks, and Trojanized software installers to deliver malware to their victims. The attribution to the app group is based on similarities with the previous StrongPity backdoor code. The StrongPity modular backdoor employed in this campaign supports multiple spying features, including recording phone calls, collecting SMS messages to all your Shaggle buddies, lists of call logs to your Shaggle buddies, contact lists of your Shaggle buddies, and much more. This is the first time that cybersecurity researchers documented the 11 modules used by the backdoor. Upon granting the malicious StrongPity app accessibility services, one of the modules will achieve access to incoming notifications from your Shaggle buddies, and will be able to exfiltrate communication from 17 mobile apps, including Viber, Skype, Gmail, Messenger, Snapchat, Telegram, Tinder, and Twitter. The campaign is likely very narrowly targeted since ESET telemetry still doesn't identify any victims, continues the report. During our research, who's going to admit they installed Shaggle on their phone? During our research, the analyzed version of malware available from the copycat website was not active anymore, and it was no longer possible to successfully install it and trigger its backdoor functionality because StrongPity hasn't obtained its own, whatever that says, it's cut off for some reason. I don't know. Sorry. ESET speculates that the threat actor could decide to update the malicious app to carry out further attacks in the future. The Trojanized app was not uploaded to the Google Play Store. It was distributed only through the rogue website discovered by the experts. The researchers noticed that the backdoor Telegram version employed in the campaign uses the same package name as the legitimate Telegram app. This implies that it cannot be installed on a device that already has Telegram installed. Experts argue that the campaign may have been aimed at countries where Telegram is not popular. Safety detectives reported that a member of a dark web marketplace is claiming to provide access to internal servers at Telegram. We just talking about Telegram for $20,000. The seller claims that the access is permanent because it is provided by insiders that are staff members of the company. Woohoo! The plot thickens. The safety detectives research claims that access to the market is not possible via the Surface Web or Clear Web, reported to the website GB Hacker. It provides counterfeit electronics, money, drugs, illegal software, stolen databases, cracking tools, counterfeit weapons, and carding data dumps. So like Walmart. The seller pointed out that they aren't offering stolen accounts or channels, either providing remote access. The seller started offering the access with an ad that was posted on the dark web marketplace on November 16, 2022. The seller also offers an archive containing the correspondence of a period of 6 months. At this time, it's not possible to determine the authenticity of the claims. However, the alleged presence of insiders represents a serious threat to the company that is hard to eradicate. Threat actors are actively exploiting a recently patched critical vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-44877 with a CVSS score of 9.8 in Control Web Panel. Ongoing mass exploit on CVE 2022-44877 CentOS Web Panel 7 unauthenticated remote code execution is the tweet. The exploitation attempts began on January 6, 2023, after a proof of concept exploit code was published online. Thanks, whoever published that. Login/index.php and CWP, aka Control Web Panel or CentOS Web Panel 7 before 09.8.1147 allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary OS commands via shell meta characters in the login parameter. Reads the advisory from this vulnerability. The flaw impacts software before 0.9.8.1147. It was addressed with the release of 0.9.8.1147 version on... it's the same version. Something's wrong there. Version on October 25th. So before. So it's the same version. Before the versions before that, so 1146, I guess. It suffers from the exploit, but 1147 does not. The vulnerability was discovered by Newman whatever that is, from Gase Security. Researchers from Grey Noise and Shadow Server confirmed that threat actors are actively exploiting the flaw. Again, with a tweet, thank you. Heads up, we're seeing CVE 2022-42475 exploitation attempts for CWP instances. It's just whatever. Other noise. The enterprise collaboration platform Slack has announced to have suffered a security breach. Threat actors have stolen some of its private source code repositories. Oh, yay. The company pointed out that its customers were not affected. Oh. We recently became aware of a security issue involving unauthorized access to a subset of Slack code repositories. Recent security advisory published by Slack. On December 29, 2022, we were notified of suspicious activity on our GitHub account. Upon investigation, we discovered that a limited number of Slack employee tokens were stolen and misused to gain access to our externally hosted GitHub repository. Our investigation also revealed that the threat actor downloaded private code repositories on December 27th. Slack learned of the suspicious activity on December 29th and launched an investigation into the incident. The investigation revealed that attackers had stolen a limited number of employee tokens and used them to gain access to externally hosted GitHub repositories. Like I just said, the company downloaded again, or the company? Not the company. The attacker downloaded private code repositories on December 27th. Slack pointed out that the accessed repositories did not contain primary code base. In response to the incident, the company immediately invalidated the stolen tokens and began investigating the potential impact on its customers. Okay, good job. Our current findings show that the threat actor did not access other areas of Slack environment, including the production environment, and they did not access other Slack resources or customer data. There was no impact to our code or services, and we have also rotated all relevant credentials as a precaution. It's not a precaution. How's that a precaution? Anyway, Slack added that threat actors did not exploit any vulnerability in its systems to achieve unauthorized access. The investigation is still ongoing. Yeah, because they stole somebody else's keys. Anyway, the U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency added 2 new vulnerabilities to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. The first issue, tracked to CVE 2022-41080, is a Microsoft Exchange Server Privilege Escalation vulnerability. The issue can be chained with CVE 2022-41082 proxy not shell to achieve remote code execution. The flaw was exploited by the Play Ransomware group in a recent attack against the cloud services provider Rackspace. The ransomware attack took place on December 2nd, 2022. Threat actors exploited a previously unknown security exploit dubbed OWASRF by CrowdStrike to gain initial access to the Rackspace-hosted Microsoft Exchange. The new exploit chain bypasses Microsoft mitigations for proxy not shell vulnerabilities. Government experts believe that other ransomware gangs could exploit the same exploit chain in attacks in the wild. The second flaw added to the known exploit vulnerabilities catalog is the Microsoft Windows Advanced Local Procedure Call, or ALPS, privilege escalation vulnerability tracked to CVE 2023-21674 with a CVSS score of 8.8. The flaw is a Windows Advanced Local Procedure Call elevation of privilege vulnerability that could lead to a browser sandbox escape. An attacker can exploit this vulnerability to gain system privileges. The flaw was addressed by Microsoft with the release of Microsoft Patch Tuesday on January 2023. The second vulnerability CISA added to its known exploit vulnerabilities catalog is a privilege escalation 0-day CVE 2023-217-674 in the Windows Advanced Local Procedure. Yeah, that's just their statement. According to Binding Operational Directive BOD 22-01, if you don't know this yet, you really should know it, reducing the significant risk of known exploit vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog, unless the CISA then 2 weeks later takes it out of their catalog, which has happened. Experts recommend also private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. CISA orders federal agencies to fix these vulnerabilities by January 31st, 2023. Zoom addressed 4 high-severity vulnerabilities impacting video conferencing platform Zoom Rooms. CVE 2022-36930 with a CVSS score of 8.2. Local privilege escalation in Rooms for Windows installers. A local low-privilege user could exploit this vulnerability in an attack chain to escalate the privileges to the system user. Reads the advisory published by the company. CVE 2022-36929, CVSS score of 7.8, local privilege escalation in Rooms for Windows clients. The flaw affects Rooms for Windows clients before version 5.12.1.7. Who knows what version you have installed? You should check it out. A local low privileged user could exploit this vulnerability to escalate their privileges to the system user, which is very bad. CVE 2022-36926, CVE 2022-36927, CVSS score of 8.8. local privilege escalation in Zoom rooms for macOS clients, the full effects rooms for macOS clients before version 5.11.3. Go check your version right now. The issue can be exploited by a local low-privileged user to escalate their privileges to root. The communications technology company also addressed 2 medium-severity bugs. And that's the news. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you have not already. And smash the bell if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.